In the modern world, the train and the plane have become commercial rivals on Britain's long-distance routes. In the world of publicity, they've often enjoyed a curious partnership. Even before nationalisation, the big four railway companies were fascinated by the idea of aeroplanes filming trains. The Coronation Scots' record-breaking run from Euston to Crewe in 1938 was an unashamed publicity stunt for the LMS. Yet only an aeroplane could keep pace with speeds constantly in excess of 100 miles per hour. The Great Western responded in kind, but the Cheltenham Flyer failed to match the eye-catching panache of the LMS Streamliner. Sadly, the London North Eastern Railway kept its feet firmly on the ground the day Mallard flew at 126 miles an hour. An unbeatable speed record was publicity enough. 25 years later, the short-lived Blue Pullman was launched amid a blaze of aerial publicity by the state-owned British Railways. The forerunner of today's Intercity 125s was ultimately a failure, but through unreliability and poor engineering rather than the over-optimism of its publicists. Even freight trains were considered suitable subjects for the bird's-eye view treatment. Scorned in its day by a public mourning the slow passing of steam, such film has now become precious archive material. But what if the technologies of flight and rail travel had run parallel? Imagine today's high-speed colour film in the hands of a 1930s cameraman. Add the agility of the lightweight helicopter over the fixed-wing monoplane. Mix well and season with the contrast of big city, open countryside and industrial sprawl. Much would remain unchanged from the days before the diesels came. The structures, the landscape, the very shape of the railway itself. The evidence is here in our high-speed, cross-country aerial voyage. In contrast to the Blue Pullmans, the Intercity 125s have been an undoubted success for British Rail. Although speed restricted on many of the routes they operate today, a pair of 125 power cars still holds the world speed record for diesel traction. Since their introduction on the East Coast and Western Main Lines in 1977, the 125s have ranged far and wide, from Penzance to Inverness and most points in between. No prizes for guessing this distinctive location. The 125s have already repaid their initial investment cost many times over. Despite the emphasis on new main-line electrification schemes, to the British public they remain the abiding image of the modern railway. Most surprising of all, the modern railway enthusiast has taken the 125s to heart. A whole generation has grown up to appreciate them since they were derided for ousting the much-loved Deltics and Westerns. North of Exeter, the spectacular engineering of the Devon banks gives way to gentler countryside, where the pace of railway traffic reflects the pace of rural life. In the last 10 years, the obsession for multiple units has become relentless. The two-car Sprinter unit, in various guises, is now the mainstay of regional services. Once a stronghold of loco-hauled travel, the line through the Regency city of Bath still retains its unique character, even if its trains lack charisma. The lines along the south coast have not escaped the modernization process. But here, there is something different. Here, there is electricity. It was once said that the southern region never built anything completely new. Even when the lines to Bournemouth were electrified in 1967, the new electric multiple units were largely old steam coaches treated to a money-saving conversion. The Class 442 units built for the extension of the electrification to Weymouth are new, almost. In keeping with tradition, their electric motors are salvaged from their predecessors. When it was created as part of the sectorization process, Network Southeast inherited two kinds of electricity. The 600-volt DC third rail system of the former southern region, and the 25 kilovolt AC lines to the north of London. Among its 25 kilovolt collection is the Bedford-St Pancras line with its distinctive Class 319 units. The Bedpan line, as it's affectionately known, passes under the M1 motorway at Scratchwood on the last leg of its journey into London. The contrast at Mill Hill is striking. The railway carrying hundreds of people in one unit, alongside the motorway voraciously satisfying its 6-lane appetite. It's obvious which is the more obtrusive, but does the argument fall down when empty facilities like the depot at Cricklewood occupy the space of 6 motorway service areas? London at sunset. Another day draws to a close, and the commuter trains begin the task of returning office workers to their homes in suburbia and beyond. Three central London termini are served by bridges across the Thames. Blackfriars with its parallel road bridge, to the west, Charing Cross, and to the east, Cannon Street, its ornate towers now only a memory. However, passenger traffic is not the whole picture. Fueling Britain's power stations has long been a task for the railway. The Class 56s and their trains of merry-go-round wagons are the distinctive face of rail freight, as familiar as the cooling towers they feed. One of a dwindling number of providers is the Selby Drift Mine in South Yorkshire. Described at its opening in the early 1980s as the most modern pit in Europe, its future is now clouded by the uncertainty hanging over the entire coal industry. As the mines run down, so the pattern of merry-go-round traffic changes. Imported coal delivered by imported locomotives. The landscape changes again as we head eastwards over the Humber estuary. A brief interlude of flat, open countryside is soon broken by the sprawl of industrial complexes like Immingham. Oil and its byproducts, such as petrochemicals and fertilizers, are staple loads for the railway. There is simply no other practical way to move such potentially hazardous bulk commodities. Even the changes that rail privatization will bring cannot alter that. Sectorization created a new business division for this vital traffic. The oil subsector locomotives, like these Class 47s, acquired their own distinctive livery. Another publicity exercise? Perhaps, but an important means of self-protection when some would see the railways deprived of all freight business. More traffic for the railway as a shipload of steel coils is unloaded onto flat wagons. This cargo may represent only one or two train loads, causing minimal impact on the environment. Yet some would still argue that a fleet of 100 juggernauts choking the motorways is more cost-effective. Immingham is well off the beaten track, so few railway passengers see its operations. Instead, they speed northwards, some 40 miles inland, along the East Coast Main Line. Many are business travellers, while a few are a new breed of London commuters. However, a significant number are tourists heading for historic towns like York, whose station, with its distinctive curved roof, is as familiar as the outline of the fire-ravaged York Minster. Meanwhile, on the coast to the east, another unique freight operation is entrusted to the railway. A Class 47 clings precariously to the cliffs at Saltburn with a train of potash from the Bulby mines. This potassium-based mineral will mainly be used in the manufacture of fertilizer, but could equally end up as a constituent of glass or soap. Yet another example of how the railway touches all our lives, whether we know it or not. Steel, once the cornerstone of Britain's industrial base and a long-term partner of the railway, whether delivering iron ore and coal for the smelting process or taking away the finished product. Many steelworks operate their own fleets of diesel shunters for marshalling trains and moving hazardous loads. They are a bizarre assortment, which defy description by all except industrial railway experts. Whatever the load, whatever the industry, everything will arrive at some point in a marshalling yard. This is Tees Yard, southwest of Middlesbrough, a perfect example of what marshalling yards used to look like before the rundown in rail freight. As industry declines, so the yards themselves shrink. The Class 08 shunters still busy themselves preparing train load, but increasingly it's a case of busy doing nothing, as another once common feature of railway operation slowly passes into history. Close by, such installations were themselves served by a major locomotive shed. In the diesel era, they became known as traction maintenance depots. Tees Yard is served by Thornaby, which has itself suffered decline. The lifted tracks and the circular scar left by the old steam roundhouse merely serve as predictions of the future. Once again, the complex operation of freight is interwoven with passenger services. This two-car pacer unit in the colours of Tyne and Wear Passenger Transport Executive is travelling north towards Middlesbrough on the avoiding line around the Thornaby complex. Close behind is the trainload of steel coils, hauled by two of the ubiquitous Class 37 locomotives, many of which have endured 30 years' hard labour in the service of freight. 300 miles from the capital lies the last major city in England, Newcastle upon Tyne. 6 bridges cross the river. 2 are rail only, like the King Edward Bridge bringing in the East Coast Main Line from the south. To the east, the high level bridge forms the other side of a complete oval with Gateshead at its base and Central Station crowning the northern side. The whole arrangement is an object lesson in space planning and offers the perfect argument to those who criticize the tight curves on model railways. Scotland beckons now, as we rush through Northumberland along the North Sea coast, towards the border town of Berwick. When the Intercity 125s were introduced to the East Coast Main Line in 1978, they brought about the first significant reduction in London to Edinburgh journey times. Nicknamed the Journey Shrinker, they provided a much-needed shot in the arm for British Rail's flagging image. Although they may have lacked the charisma of their illustrious predecessors, the public loved them. In a world obsessed with saving time, there was never a more timely revolution. 40 years on from Mallard's world speed record, the dream of consistent, high-speed running finally became a daily reality. The East Coast electrification was the major rail project of the mid-1980s and finally saw the Intercity 125s ousted from their first major proving ground, where they'd reigned supreme for 10 years. In the north, too, regional railways provided a vital link between town and city. many cross-country lines, the Newcastle-Carlisle route has surrendered to the now familiar outline of the Sprinter unit. For much of its length, the line runs parallel to Hadrian's Wall, a rather more successful attempt to keep out unwanted intruders. The modern-day equivalent of the Night Mail, a publicity run organised jointly between British Rail and the Post Office. The Class 47 locomotive was specially named Royal Mail for the occasion, and filmed amid the splendour of the Scottish borders on the approach to Beattock Summit. Unlike the original 1930s film, which had Auden's poem as its commentary, there was no attempt to rhyme border with postal order. Coatbridge Freightliner Terminal east of Glasgow completes the rail freight picture. There have been many attempts to combine road and rail in the past 30 years. Many have been dismal failures. Yet, the rigorously standardized nature of the container operation has achieved the economies of scale and efficiency of operation that earlier schemes could only dream of. Many of these consignments will have arrived by sea and been unloaded from the River Clyde before their redistribution through the rail network. Class 37 is heading south onto the West Coast main line, initially relieving the roads of a dozen juggernauts. Glasgow, a former European city of culture and a focus of Anglo-Scottish traffic since the early days of steam. The site of Central Station was once shared by the London, North Western and the Glasgow and South Western railways. All that remains today of this railway rivalry are the supports for one of the original bridges. The startling Strathclyde PTE livery is a feature of the area, alongside the refined and more restrained intercity colours of the Class 86 locomotives and their rakes of Mark III stock. To many, reaching Glasgow or Edinburgh is merely the start of a Scottish journey. It's only north of these cities that the true Scottish character emerges, and the railways take on a distinctive shape unparalleled in the rest of the British Isles. The most famous railway structure of all, the Forth Bridge, offers the job with the best view in Britain. Every superlative in the dictionary has been used to describe this wonder of engineering. Suffice it to say, it was opened in 1890 and carries the East Coast Main Line from Edinburgh to Perth, Dundee, Aberdeen and Inverness. The East Highlands may have the most impressive bridges, but the West Highlands have the scenery. North of Crianlarich, the line from Glasgow Queen Street divides to Oban and Fort William. North of Fort William, the line passes over Glenfinnan Viaduct on the final leg of the journey to the port of Mallaig. This section has long been associated with steam operation in the summer months. This is wild, desolate country, subject to violent extremes of weather. Even with today's technology, it is impossible to imagine the enormous challenge of carving the line from the solid rock in such inhospitable terrain. The Euston to Fort William sleeper is now one of only a handful of trains entrusted to locomotive haulage. A batch of Class 37s were fitted with train heating equipment for these services and, with their uniquely Scottish names, became as closely identified with the West Highland Line as their hard-working sisters were with freight. Like their steam and diesel predecessors, a number were forced to take shelter in the snow sheds along the route. In the depths of winter, helicopters are more likely to be used for rescue than filming. As the night sleeper heads across Rannoch Moor on the final part of its journey, so our journey too draws to a close. In 50 years, the science of photography has progressed by a small step, not a giant leap. The process is essentially the same today as it was in the 1930s. Now there is colour and high-speed film, but little else is new. Only the means of gathering the pictures has been significantly enhanced by technology. So, what will technology bring 50 years from now? Will high-resolution satellites make such a journey possible from the comfort of an armchair? If so, how much of the railway will be left to record? What exactly will you see in a 21st century aerial voyage?